Okay, I think we're recording now. Today we have with us Miss Rosie Akers, affectionately known as Miss Rosie. If you've been around Rector very much, you've seen her either walking or at the grocery store or the dollar store. But everyone here knows and loves Miss Rosie. And you've been here so long. You've been here all your life?
Most of my life, and I'm now 88.
88. Wow. I hope I get around half as good as you do at 88.
Well, I'm just saying I am blessed. I've
are
been
blessed.
blessed, and I'm very
been,
thankful.
Yeah.
Yes.
We go to church together, and she never misses. If she does, she's sick, and that is not very often. She's been blessed with great health, and we're all thankful for that. So tell me a little bit about your early life and your family,
Well, I was born in 1934, and a little community called Grapevine out about 5 miles east of Rector.
Grapevine.
Grapevine.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of grapes that grew out in that area, and it was just called the Grapevine community. My dad's name was Tim Akers. My mother was Irma Armstrong Akers. And of course, back in 1934, that's when our country was beginning to come out of the throes of the Depression.
Right.
Now, I did not experience any part of the brunt of the Depression, but I can remember as I got older, my parents would talk about how cheap everything was, but you couldn't get the money to buy anything.
Didn't matter how cheap it was.
No.
Because you didn't have the money.
And it was a pretty rough time for a lot of people at that time, but I don't remember us ever missing a meal. Mother had 3 meals a day.
The people back then raised their own gardens.
Oh, yeah.
Had chickens.
Yes.
Cows. Some people even had goats and sheep. And so you, like you say, you didn't miss meals back then. I've heard some my older friends, I'll say, talk about that and how no matter how bad it was, they still had food on the table.
Right. And of course, living in the country, you had the biggest part of your living.
Yes.
And I can remember Dad drove an A model car, little
A-model.
29 A model, and he finally got a 30, but it was a little one-seated. And I learned to drive on an A model when I was 11 years old. But anyway.
That's cool.
And I can remember back then, people didn't come to town much. Once a week, and some 2 or 3 weeks go by before you go to town. And that was usually on a Friday afternoon or a Saturday night for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can remember when you could not get a place to park your car on Main Street. I mean, it was...
I can just barely remember those days. They had the drawing out down at the park. And,
They did,
and
yeah.
all the stores stayed open till 10 maybe?
Mm-hmm, right.
And so what are some of the stores that you remember being on Main Street?
Oh, I can remember when there was a business in every building. There were no vacant buildings on Main Street. Yeah. You could start down, say, at 5th that comes into Main. There was a frozen food locker back then.
Was that Mann's? Was that the name of it, Mann's? Frozen food?
I don't remember that part. But I know the Western Auto was right there by it.
Paul Cruz?
Paul Cruz. And there was let's see, Tommy Arnold had a variety store. There was Wagner's grocery store and Bearden's dry goods store. And there was a Federated store, all in line. And Mr. W.I. Phillips had the drugstore.
Right, right. So then was the drugstore on further toward the bank, but still in the buildings that are still standing?
Yeah, I think there is a barber shop in that building that used to be Phillips.
Well, now, the barber shop was actually built. If that's the little red brick building there, it was built after the fire, so that it would have been the next building. South of it there,
Now
yes.
the fire was in, I think, in 1957.
That's about
It
right.
burned out the most of that block, and let's see.
Did Carl Pruitt, wasn't his building one of those that burned?
Pruitt's,
That had appliances and whatever?
well,
It was the old Wolf building is what they called it, right?
the old Wolf building. Now that's before my time,
Okay.
so I've just heard my parents speak of that. And then down to the bank. And I can remember the first time I was ever inside of a bank, and it wasn't where that one is now. It was on the corner of First and Main, right across from the little park.
That's front and main.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So it's like a white ceramic.
yeah, and that's the first bank in Rector that I can remember.
But, you know that's where the Bank of Rector started, and where the Pickett State Bank is now was the First National Bank.
Mm-hmm.
And First National Bank, I believe, went under, and then the Rector Bank moved across into that building.
Well, now that was the old Rector Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And after, that changed, now Ray Davis had a jewelry shop there.
Yes.
And I think right down behind that bank, Alexi Cochran had a photographer shop. He was the photographer.
Okay.
And Tommy Arnold had a variety store. We're going on down now toward the...
This on the front street.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Lashley's had a cleaners. And then we go down to the post office was in there.
Right. That's the oldest building in Rector.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
The oldest one. And then down to the hotel. Earl Keller had the hotel.
Okay.
Oh,
The pictures that I have seen of that hotel was called Woody's.
Woody's Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I guess Earl Keller was manager or he ran it or so.
And it had a really nice, classy restaurant in it, I understand.
It did. It did. Yeah. They did a good business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the main reason for that was the depot.
The depot, passenger trains came through every day. I guess they ran 7 days a week, Cotton Belt. Yeah, people traveled, and another thing, I think it was the Great Southern Coach or the Greyhound bus came through Rector about every day. And they'd stop at the Phillips drugstore. That's where people would get on and off the bus.
On their way to St. Louis.
On the way to St. Louis, and then they could go south. I don't know how far south they went, but there was a lot of people traveled back then.
So did you ever ride the train or the bus?
Yeah. Rode to St. Louis and then on to Detroit, and big change you got off the Cotton Belt in St. Louis and you got on the Wabash into Detroit. And that's like you were just on a cloud. Oh, it was a super good train, man.
So you went to Detroit, and what year was that? Do you remember?
Oh, that was 1944.
1944.
44. Dad was working up there. Well, anyway, now let's see, back to the businesses. Well, you know, Rector had a good economy back then. They were coming out of the Depression, but World War II started in 1941. And I mean, everything boomed. It was booming. And the world just really changed. And there were, as I said, there's a lot of businesses in Rector. And I can remember when Irby's Funeral Home was first built. Now, the one across from where it used to be Fritz's service station. That's the old one now. It's built 1952.
Yes.
But the old Irby was right close to this building.
The next, that side of the museum.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question. Do you remember, at one time we talked about that maybe the Irby's was down south here just a little bit. Do you know if that was because, you know, when this building burned and then the wall fell off between Irby's and the furniture store, then there was Irby's had to move out. Do you know where they moved? Do you think, because you told me you went to a funeral down here somewhere.
Yeah.
So do you think they went down there temporarily while they were building?
I think that's it.
Okay, that's
Joey.
what I figured.
I
Yeah.
think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin was killed, and he lived in Michigan and was brought back here, and that was in 1950.
1950.
That's when he was killed, and he was brought here, and his funeral was in the old Irby.
Which would have been there.
Well, yeah.
Okay, because in 52 when they had the fire, then Irby's would have had to move somewhere temporarily while they built the nice one across the street.
Yeah.
Over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then well, I'll let you talk about it, but Mitchell's was up on this street.
Yeah, Mitchell was right up there where the flower shop
Yeah.
is now.
And where the Masons and Eastern Star were above that.
Yeah. And, you know, Emily Donaldson or Lola, maybe it's Lola, had the flower shop there by the funeral home.
Now across
the street.
And wasn't that the post office at one time?
At one time.
They had moved from Front Street over here.
Right.
And then they built the new one where they are now. They're moved over there.
Well, and then Cecil McNeil's store was in there, auto appliance and all that.
You know, there's still a wooden window in the side of that building. Of course, you know, they're in the process of tearing it down now, but the Cecil McNeil. And I was told that Cecil had that put in because the post office was next door. And so instead of him having to come out and leave his business and go over there, they would just stick the mail through to him through that little window from the post office. And the window's still there.
It's still there.
And so I've taken some pictures to keep for historical reasons.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then remember, Richard Gordon had a restaurant.
Yes.
He done a good business.
Yes.
He did.
And didn't he have a pool hall? Was it next
I
door?
think it was next door. Yeah.
You know, we have the rack that held the sticks and the balls. We have it over here in the room. No telling how that thing is.
And let's see. Well, Tom Ford had the theater in there. Yeah.
And a lot of people, we try to explain to people about the Ford room here, which is in the same room we're in here, and as a stage, and those two columns that are on each side were the columns that were in front of the original Ford Theater.
Yeah.
And so that's what we call this the Ford room.
Yeah. good memorial.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, because you know it's the entertainment center right now of Rector, and and the Ford Theater was the entertainment center of
It,
Rector
it
back
wa-
from 36 to 66. I believe.
well, yeah, about 30 years or longer.
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, all during the time of the war when everything was booming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I
and
understand
after that too.
I understand that what killed the theater was the invention of the TV.
The TV.
And when the as you said, economy was booming, people could afford to buy TVs, and they stayed home and watched
Yeah,
Bonanza or whatever at home.
yeah. And even if the weather's bad, they didn't have to get out and go see it. They had it right there.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. See how that's where the technology has come in and changed everything. Yeah.
You know, and of course, you know, I've always loved technology all my life, and tried to keep up with it. And right now, AI is the big thing.
It is.
And I showed you a little bit about it the other day, and the people who are use it love it. And I'm not going to say there's not some bad about it. You know, there's a bad about everything, but it's amazing how fast it is and how much information it can give you. And you think about that how impressed I am with that. Think about how impressed people were with things like a electric washing machine. You know, we have a washing machine back here that was actually run by a gasoline engine.
Yeah, gas engine.
And when electricity, it came from down around Leonard, and when electricity came to that area, Cecil McNeil, I understand, actually carried these electric motors in stock. You come buy this motor from him, and it set right in where that gasoline engine was. You plug it in, and now you got an electric washing
Got
machine.
an electric washer.
Yeah, and you know, and it's just amazing technology. I hear people say all the time that we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. I don't think we've done that yet. I think technology is just
It will just mushroom.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, you're
open. Right. It's like one door opens another. They just feed on itself.
yes. And I tell you what I appreciate a lot about you is that you're interested in that, even though it's kind of bypassed you, because
Yeah.
you don't do internet and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But you're still interested in learning about it.
Yeah.
And that's, 88, you keep your brain going, you know. I had some friends who were in their 90s. One was 99. She had a computer and did all of her own Christmas cards and birthday cards.
My.
She printed them on this
Yeah.
computer when she was nearly 100 years old.
Yeah.
And I could see you doing that same thing.
Well.
But back to what we're saying. So we got to the Ford Theater, and then we're going south. You cross the next one. In my time was Dalton's Hardware.
Yes.
Okay.
Albert Dalton had the hardware right on the corner where Napa is
is
now.
now,
Yeah. Yeah. He had a nice store there.
Yeah. And then across the street from that.
Purcell, Elmer Purcell's drugstore.
Did it have the fountain and everything in it?
It did.
Yeah.
Oh, it was super. It was a super nice
Oh, yeah.
drugstore. And I can remember going in it, and it would just smell so good. Oh, it had
yeah.
a good fragrance of some kind in it.
How
Oh,
about being on the Andy Griffith Show?
it was really something nice for Rector.
Do you remember when that closed?
No, I don't. I don't remember the year it closed.
I can remember when Janice and I were newlyweds. There was a store, and I can't remember who put it in, but it was clothing. They had.
Was it Cole? Cole clothing.
Coles, yes.
Yeah.
And a couple of ladies worked there. Didn't Miss Debbie Smith work there?
Debbie worked there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so next door to that was.
Let's see. There was a bakery Off's Bakery.
Off's Bakery. I've heard about that.
Off's Bakery. They bake the bread and the donuts and the cakes and the cookies. And, oh.
So now, what store was where Keith Hill store was? The drugstore. You know, it's pretty good size. You remember what it was?
Oh my. Now you threw me off track.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
We talked about that before we started about me not getting you off track.
Well, anyway, that's okay. It'll come to me. I have sometimes a memory lapse, and
was Purcell there, or was it across the street? Purcell drugstore. Lonnie Purcell, they name.
Lonnie and Elmer were brothers. Elmer had the drugstore, and Lonnie had a clothing store.
Okay.
Right there by the bakery, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So I think, was it where the open lot is, where they just put in the pocket park?
I think that's it.
I think
that's
it was
it.
too. And then to the left of that, you know, to the north side, is where the Off's Bakery was.
Right.
And that's where Marshall Green was killed, right in that area.
I remember that.
You know,
I sure do.
You know, the bullet holes are still in the wall.
Okay. And the Ogles was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
his name's disappeared from him now. But anyway, he was in here last Labor Day, and I can't remember his name. Isn't it crazy? Jim Marler.
Jim Marler. Yeah.
Yeah. He passed away a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
But he was in the museum about a year ago, and he was talking about that, and he said, I was an eyewitness to that. I said, you got to be kidding. He said, no, I was. He said, he and a friend were riding their bicycles, and they heard these shots, and they jumped off their bicycles and got behind a car. And he said that they had called the marshal, that one of them was drunk and raising Cain inside a restaurant there, and that the marshal went in and he was bringing him out. The brothers hid, and they ran up behind the marshal and grabbed his gun and started shooting.
Shot him with his own gun, didn't he?
Killed him, yeah.
Yeah. I remember when that happened.
And so, I have a recording of Jim talking about that. Such a nice guy Jim was.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a walking tour here someday, and that's going to be part of it, where the marshal was killed, because the bullet holes are still in the wall.
The evidence is there.
Yeah.
It's
There was another lady who came through here. She came to the library, and then she wanted to come to the museum, and she was upstairs in a beauty shop up over the drugstore. Remember that? Had
Yeah.
beauty shop businesses up there.
Yeah.
And it was up over the street, and she was looking out the window there in summer, you know, with no air conditioning, and somebody started hollering, he's got a gun, and she said her mother pulled her back from the window. She said she didn't actually see the shooting, but then she ran back to the window, and she said, I remember the marshal had on a white shirt, and I remember the blood coming out of his white shirt, and he was laying there on the sidewalk. So.
And now that was right almost in front of Purcell Drugstore, right in there.
It was
in that block.
Yeah, it was, but it was there, right in front of the Off's Bakery.
Okay.
The holes are in the left-hand pillar there.
Yeah.
The last one before the empty lot, the holes are in that pillar right there. Yeah. So it's just amazing how much history people volunteer to us. You know, I've recorded both of those stories, and they both match up, even though, you know, she was just a little girl, but she remembered a lot about it. She lives in Texas now.
Well, was that in 49, 50, 51?
You know, I don't remember.
It's been a long time ago. Yeah.
So then the next building would have been the bank building we talked about.
Yeah.
That, that started out as Rector Bank, and then it became Sigsbee's Insurance was there too, weren't they? At one time.
Sigsbee's Insurance.
Did Mac Manchester work for him then?
Okay,
And he was
okay.
the city clerk. And I was just a kid, but I've always been interested in anything to do with civic duties, whatever. I've always liked that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
if
I've
we,
always been involved.
if we don't keep history alive, it'll be lost forever.
Forever.
Pretty soon,
That's right.
forever. And the younger generation coming on won't know a thing about our town.
And
Or what
let me
happened.
give a little plug for the museum. I tell people that we're not a typical museum in that we don't collect items. We collect history.
You collect history.
We save history.
Oh.
And so if you have a picture that you think is important to the history rector, but you don't want to give the picture up, we have copy machines here, and we can make a colored copy that looks just like it, and you can have your original back.
Yeah.
We're not interested. We will take the original, but that's not what we're actually after.
Yeah,
We're here. We're historians.
That's the that's the prime objective.
That's exactly
History.
right.
Oh, excuse me.
So
Well, now I got to tell you this.
okay.
Bert Sigsbee built that little park, the bandstand.
No, that was Bert Senior.
Bert Sr. built it. Leland was telling me this. He's got maybe more history on that than I have, but he told me one time what year, but I don't remember. But I remember when I was a kid that every Thursday night they'd have a band concert.
City band.
A city band, and it was directed by Mr. Everett King.
Right.
And Melvin Allstat played in it, and Dan McBride, Pickle King. What was Pickle's real name? I forgot.
I
Don't know.
don't know.
I think Bob Cranford might have.
Yes, he did. And we have most of those guys band instruments.
Yeah.
And we have maybe Jewel Martyr's band uniform, city band uniform, and we have lots of instruments that was used by the band. I tell you what, we have that. If we don't forget it before we leave here, I'll point out to you. They used to practice upstairs down here. A building that one time upstairs was a skating rink, and one time it was a bar. And the stairs came out at the sidewalk, and you walk up these long stairs. When you get to the door up there, then there was this little tag, and you move this tag, and there was a hole. You could peek through that hole and see if who you were wanting was there, and you wouldn't have to pay to get in.
Yeah.
And whether it was skating rink or dance hall, whichever it was at that time, I thought that was kind of neat. But the blackboard, the last thing that went on up there was the city band practice there, and the blackboard was still on the wall, and it still had the writing. Talked about practice. It said, "Do your wood shedding at home." It said. And Sherry Mosley had written something about Bobby Pruitt and Leland Blacksher, Good Boys or something on it, and that's all there, and it's hanging up on the wall over here.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll show it to you
Okay.
before you leave.
Okay.
But
Yeah, that was something everybody looked forward to. There'd be a big crowd come in on Thursday night.
yeah.
Oh, we liked that band music.
Yeah.
And they'd play a lot of marches. That was the kind of music they played back then. That was in the 40s.
In the 40s. So let's go back north up Main Street a little bit. We own the building on each side of us here. And on the north side of us, that building was was the first Kroger store in Arkansas. Did you know that?
Now I don't remember.
Well, it was there from 29 to 39.
Well, I'd have been 5 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. I just don't
Yeah.
remember that much about it.
And then it moved down here. The story I got, the history of that was that it was, they opened up and got hit by the Depression. And their biggest problem is that all the other stores, when you buy your groceries, they just write it down, and then in the fall, when you get your crops out, you went and paid it. Well, Kroger, now this is what I was told, was because they were a big corporation, you couldn't do that. It was cash only.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard on them, and then the Depression too. And so I understand that when they closed here, that they moved south, and a building down there, maybe Federated, I'm not sure, but and they changed their name. And I'm sure that had to do with because of they had lost all their business, and then they wanted to act like they were starting all over. But that's Kroger, and the museum has worked with them for 2-3 years trying to get some help with this building, and we're just about to finish the front of it, and it's gone back completely original, and so even down to the door handle, and so it's going to be really, really nice when we get it open.
Well, now another store that really done a good business was Hardin's, Clayton Hardin.
I was getting ready to ask you about that.
Clayton Hardin. Yeah, it was where Barbers or Melvin Allstat was. And he sold dry goods and groceries and hardware. I mean, he covered the whole bit. You could buy a lot of stuff there.
But someone told me that you went to the back and there was a counter there. You took your merchandise back there, and someone wrote down what you're buying, and they put that in a bucket, and they pulled that upstairs. There was somebody up there, and they would figure up how much it was, add the tax, all that, and let it back down to you. And they tell you how much it is, and you put your money in the bucket and pull the money back upstairs. You remember that?
I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing several, like over at Kennett at that store, and I forgot what they called them. They had a name for them.
Yeah, well.
Dumb waiter. Dumb waiter.
A dumb waiter.
Dumb waiter.
I remember, I've heard that story
That's
before.
it, yeah. That thing would be
waiter.
going back and forth. Put your money in the receipts, and a dumb waiter.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the
goodness.
first ones, I'm sure.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember we'd buy groceries there, and my dad would buy Oshkosh overalls.
Yes.
That was the kind.
Yeah.
And I remember my mother bought me my first pair of patent leather slippers. First pair of patent leathers. I'd never seen them. They're real shiny,
Oh, yeah.
for $1.
$1.
$1.
But think about that. That was 2 days' work.
Well, that's it. If you got 50 cents a day, that was money. And then she got up to 75 cents.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
And then when you got $1 a day, you could celebrate. Just think, Joey, it's just unbelievable. I mean, $1 back then, though, was worth $1.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, you could take that dollar bill and buy a lot of groceries.
Oh, so like going to the movies. How much did it cost to go to the movies?
Oh, goodness.
$0.10. And popcorn was $0.10, and a soda was $0.05.
Yeah.
So for $0.25, you go to the movies, get a bag of popcorn and a soda.
Mm-hmm. Get filled up. Get filled up. They give you good measure.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see. In history, the state of history of town, I found something that I had no idea, that about 3 buildings south of here, you remember where Don Webb had his office?
Yeah.
It wasn't that building, but but there's 2 doors. One goes this way and one goes this way. This one was what they called a movie house back in the 20s. It was, the what they call them, the talking, what would they call it, talking show or
Yeah.
silent movies.
Silent movies. Silent
Had a piano player playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I understand that's what they had there back in the
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah. Silent
But we the history of this town goes way back, all the way back to the Civil War.
Well, now Leland's got a lot on that. It goes back to 1800 and something.
Yeah.
The Civil War was 1865.
Right, and a lot of that was fought out at Scatterville. There's a lot of soldiers from the Civil War out there.
Yeah, buried there. Yeah.
And so then, let's see, we had Arby's butane gas was up here, like maybe 2 buildings up. The old Democrat was up there. There was a newspaper called the Vitascope.
Vitascope.
Do you remember where it was?
It
was
was
that before your time?
It was before my time, but my mother remembered that paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
She sure did.
Well, when they first started here, and Southwestern bought this land, I think they bought 80 acres. I think 40 on each side, where they built the tracks. Then is when Scatterville was just a bunch of, they called it Scatterville because it was just a bunch of buildings scattered.
Yeah.
They were going to actually have a business district like towns do. And everybody started moving toward the railroad track. And so you had the railroad and you had logging. Logging was a huge thing.
That was a big part of the economy back then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the train helped a lot with that too.
Oh, yeah.
But then what do you think? When do you think that the town of Rector started going down? Although, let me say this, I have looked at the census, and the census I don't believe has ever been over 23,000. All my life it was about 2,000, and it's still almost 1,900 now. And if you figure that families used to have 8, 9, 10 kids, now they have 1, 2, 3. A lot of your census numbers of census are low because families being smaller.
Right.
So if you still have the same number of families, you would have a lower number of population.
You would.
And so it's easy to understand why the Rector is down around 1,800. But what do you think was the demise of Rector?
Well, for one thing, when the trucking business took over, big trucks, they could bring in merchandise and haul it out cheaper and quicker, much faster than on a train.
Right. Yeah.
The transportation.
Yeah. That's what. So when they closed the depot here, was the first of it, and then when you started getting what we call the big box stores, Walmart's.
Yeah. Walmart came in.
The big Krogers and the Targets and Kmart's and all those. And that was very difficult on small businesses.
That's it. That put them out.
Yeah.
That put them out.
And
they're just like a monopoly.
yeah. And so it was. It's been really hard to keep a town this size going, but with people like you who have a great interest in the town, we're able to keep it going. I know that anytime we have something here, you're there, and that's what it takes is people supporting the town to keep it alive. I personally thank you for that, and because we still got a long way to go.
Oh, we got a long way.
So do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, there's a whole lot, Joey, but
Well, maybe we'll do. Well, you told me that if you get on a line and I interrupt you, you lose your
yeah.
concentration, and so I can't keep my mouth shut either.
Well,
So,
that's it. It's a lot of interaction. That's
Yeah.
what makes it interesting.
and so we'll do this again. All right.
We'll pick up and go on and
We'll do this on your 100th birthday.
okay.
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 All right. Well, thank you for coming.
I've
All right.
enjoyed this,
Thank you, Miss
Joey,
Rosie.
and thank you for asking me.
All right.
I appreciate it and hope I've contributed a little.
Oh, you did. We're the next thing. I'm trying to talk to Leland and to Bill Romine and Miss Betty Esmond and some different ones. I got it 2 or 3 hours of Miss Crockett before she passed.
Oh,
so I
my
got
goodness.
lots of stuff
Oh,
there.
my, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Well, you know, Joey, one-on-one, I think it's much better talking that way.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
good. Well, that's what we'll do, and so we'll eventually get this on the internet, and so we'll
Well,
let's see.
this will go all over
All over the
the
world.
world.
Yeah.
All over
Yeah,
the
sure
world.
will. Sure will in a split second.
Woo.
All right. So thanks again for coming, and we'll get this. I don't think there'll be any editing. I think everything went just fine. So
Well.
we maybe can just put it right up there. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.